John says it's the newest Black Mamba. I like that. Oregon's freshman phenom Keeerrrttt1's. With LaMichael James leaving, that means more touches for him. Pretty scary for opposing offenses. That offense in general is scary for defenses.
Yeah, if you're just a little bit slower, they'll put 60 points on you.
Hello, Duck fans. Kurt here. It is Friday, January 13th, 2012, and welcome to my weekly FishDuck.com vlog. Well, we are now officially into the college football postseason, which is usually a sad time, if not for the fact that the season ended on such a high note for the Oregon Ducks. Now that I've had a chance to go back and actually watch the TV broadcast, as opposed to being in the stands for the game, there were two things that really stood out to me in the television broadcast. You know, if you've ever been to a game before, there's always this contradiction. The game that you see from the stands versus the game that's shown on TV, yeah, the score may be the same, but you see completely different things. From the field, you see the whole spectrum of what takes place. So you see a lot of things that the cameras don't pick up, and vice versa. There are things that the cameras show that from the stands you simply have no idea that that's taking place. So based on that knowledge of both being in the stands and watching the game, there are two things that really stood out to me about the TV broadcast that if you weren't there at the Rose Bowl, you may not have known about. The first half of the Rose Bowl was an incredible back and forth display of offensive prowess, but there was one drive in the first quarter where Oregon stumbled and they had to punt. With the way Wisconsin was moving the ball, people were already murmuring in the stands that even just one stop could be the difference in the game, and some people were thinking, oh no, you know, if Oregon doesn't get some stops here, this might be the game right now, already over in the first quarter. And this drive halted in part because LaMichael James dropped a middle screen that was thrown a little high, but it was still catchable. It was still well within reach. The broadcasters immediately moved on to the next thing as if it wasn't a big deal, and the cameras cut away. So what you didn't see was what Oregon fans in the stands lamented about well into the second half as that game was progressing. That every single Wisconsin defender was blocked on that play. And had LaMichael James caught it, it would have been a 70-yard touchdown catch without anyone even touching him. At worst, it would have been about a 50 to 60-yard gain where the Ducks would have been set up well into the red zone. That drop was huge. We've seen it before where Oregon on screen passes, if the blockers are there, their guys, be it Barner or James or Keeerrrttt1, whoever, one cut and they can be gone. And every defender on that side of the field was blocked. So all LaMichael had to do was catch the ball and he was gone. And perhaps this is why he dropped the ball, seeing the way that the whole field was wide open and with blockers in place. His eyes probably got wide, he licked his chops, planning whatever touchdown celebration he was going to do, and he forgot the ball. Now that drop came on second down, and on third and long, Oregon was unable to convert for the first down, so they had to punt. Now, think of how different that game would have been if Oregon's LaMichael James had had a 70-yard touchdown catch in the first quarter immediately in response to what Wisconsin had done. At halftime, fans near me in the stands turned to me and they asked me what my thoughts were on the first half. My exact words in response were, Oregon is lucky to have it tied right now. That LaMichael drop was an easy touchdown. And in a game like this, they can't leave any points off the board. Now, it turned out that in the second half, the defense clamped down, and Oregon was able to escape with a 7-point victory that came down to the last play. But had LaMichael James held on to that ball, it may not have been that close. The other significant moment that barely got picked up by the cameras and really barely registered was what proved to be the final play of the game. Now, here's what you saw.
Wilson. He's got Toon and down in the field. So Toon is upended and it'll stop briefly. There's no time to really spike it with 2 seconds, is there? And Toon is shaken up onto play. He's going to stay on the field. This looks like the last snap of the ball game.
He's going to try to spike it here.
And he did.
Now let's go back and take another look at that. Because what we saw in the stands, what everyone was watching, was how Oregon safety John Boyette could barely stand up and kept falling down. He was clearly woozy with a probable concussion. And personally, I wanted Oregon to call a timeout because I did not like the prospect of Wisconsin having to play to run and John Boyette being out there having no idea what his name is, much less what defense Oregon is running. Coaches were also asking for a timeout. You could see that on the sidelines, coaches were signaling for a timeout to get Boyette off the field, as he clearly had his bell rung, if not a full concussion, and was in no condition to be on the field at the time, especially with Wisconsin driving for the potential game-winning score. Now, of course, Wisconsin poorly executed those final seconds with no timeout left, something that I thought was really going to bite them in the final minute, and it turned out to be true, when they squandered their timeouts early in the second half. In a shootout, it often comes down to who has the ball last. And if Wisconsin had been able to run a play, John Boyette was in no condition to be able to defend it, which could have led to a wide-open receiver and overtime. Who knows how the Rose Bowl might have ended up. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and Oregon is Rose Bowl champions. But if LaMichael had caught that ball, it wouldn't have been a last-minute nail-biter, or if Wisconsin had been able to run a play and gone after John Boyette, who had fallen down a couple of times, Oregon might still not have won a Rose Bowl in the past 95 years. That's what you did not see when you watched the TV broadcast. Now, as for basketball, the Ducks dropped a tough game against Cal, 77-60, with a dismal shooting performance, but they rebounded rather nicely Thursday night with a victory over Arizona State in Tempe, and they'll be playing Arizona down in Tucson on Saturday. It's at 12:30. It is a national broadcast on CBS, so be sure to tune in for that. After that, they are returning back home to play the two Los Angeles schools, UCLA and USC, and Oregon State will also be coming to the Matt Knight Arena. Oregon is now 12-5. And very respectable when compared to the expectations for this team. DeVoe Joseph has really emerged as a quality scoring threat for this team ever since he became eligible back in December. And when his shot falls, the Ducks can really surprise some people. When he's off, then the whole team is kind of off. That normally would show that Joseph is the team leader and everyone follows him. After all, he's averaged double figures in the last 9 games, but this team is really E.J. Singler's team. He is Mr. Consistency on an otherwise very inconsistent squad. Singler has double figures in scoring in 14 of the last 17 games. That's impressive. But he has yet to really dominate a game, like how we saw Jovan Catron carry the team on his back repeatedly last year. We'll see how things progress, but it's clear that while there are growing pains, this team is making a steady improvement, and that's promising to see. Now, as for FishDuck.com, I'm proud to announce that we have some new writers that are now contributing to the site. Jared Young joins the FishDuck.com team after graduating from Western Oregon University, where he was both a journalist and a sports radio host on KYKN, doing color commentary for high school games as well as doing a pregame show for Ducks and Beavers games. Jared will be covering a lot of Oregon basketball for FishDuck.com and other sports going forward, and look for his write-ups to appear every Friday. Also, we welcome Mark Flores to the FishDuck team, who will be providing new articles for us every Wednesday. Now you may be saying, well, Wednesday is my day. That's usually when you come to our site to learn a little bit about Oregon Duck sports history. Don't worry, I will still be writing as well. But because of the massive workload that has become FishDuck.com for both Charles and myself, I'll probably be reducing my articles to every other week. But Mark will be writing every week for us, so be sure to check back on Wednesdays. Now, Mark used to write for the Salem Statesman Journal, and he is a meticulous stats guy like me. He'll be covering a lot of sports for FishDuck.com, not just football. He'll be covering some baseball and basketball, soccer, lacrosse, track and field, all the other sports that are there and important, but we know that football is what fuels our fire, and yet still there's a lot going on with University of Oregon athletics, and FishDuck.com, we're going to make sure that we cover that. My article from this past Wednesday drew really great response. I was quite surprised. very pleasantly surprised about all the very positive feedback I got when I showcased the evolution of Oregon's facilities over the years. Today there are 3 words that are synonymous with the Oregon program: uniforms, Nike, facilities. So I'll argue tooth and nail that it's actually the great coaching, the stability in the coaching staffs, and the athletes behind the uniforms that have built the program to national prominence. But there is no question that the facilities Oregon has not only lures the best athletes to Oregon, but then really helps maximize their potential. We're also launching a new video series, the FishDuck Minute. These are snippet videos of our longer form FishDuck videos, providing a quick little sample, a little taste of the kind of analysis that you can expect from fish reports. The #1 FishDuck Minute is already up. It's titled simply, I Am Oregon. And we'll be unveiling new features to FishDuck.com in the coming weeks and months, so be sure to check back often. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, and don't forget about the Fish Tank. It's our video archive that has compiled over 4,000 Oregon Ducks related videos, all in one easy to navigate location. And now, my random tweet of the week.
Hey, will you shut up?
Thank you.
This week, for my music recommendation, I want to talk about a Las Vegas group you probably haven't heard of just yet, but a year from now, you'll probably be a huge fan of. Just recently, they signed with Interscope Records, and they'll be putting out their major label debut album sometime later in 2012. I'm talking about a group known as Imagine Dragons. Now, Imagine Dragons is an indie electro group that creates driving, eclectic indie rock with synth undertones and heavy dance grooves, reminiscent of groups like Metric, Hello Goodbye, Neon Trees, or The Big Pink. Now, after winning 4 Battle of the Bands contests in a row, they recorded their first album in 2009, and they've put out 2 more EPs since. All of these are available on their website. They've received tons of radio airplay, and their songs have been featured on MTV's Real World and in American Idol commercials. Even before they signed with Interscope, the roster of artists that they have performed with is very impressive. They've shared stages with Weezer, Jet, Temper Trap, Andrew WK, Foster the People, Civil Twilight, Neon Trees, pretty much any cool power pop or indie rock band out there with a buzz, Imagine Dragons has opened for them. They've been on the festival circuit, and when their major label debut album drops later this year, expect to hear a lot of noise about Imagine Dragons. So if this is your first taste, enjoy. This is from their 2010 EP, Hell in Silence. The song is called All Eyes. That's it for me this week, except for a little bit of late breaking news. Kenyon Barner has decided to come back for his senior year. So with the Michael leaving for the NFL, it's now the Kenyon who will be taking over his senior season to really showcase what he can do. And I look forward to it. Cannot wait for September to see Kenyon Barner as the man up there. So there's so much going on in the world of FishDuck.com and Oregon sports. Let's all just enjoy the ride. Remember, if you think you know Oregon sports, go fish. Get hooked. This is Kurt saying go Ducks.